to own it. Just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here. Oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you.
Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Sparkle.
It's great to have you. No, I always watched your career and all the awesome things you're doing, and I've always wanted to interview you, so I'm so happy you're here today. Tell us a little bit about how you got started. I heard your story, and I think it's great.
Okay, well, growing up, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And one of my first jobs was to work as a teacher's aide in a second grade classroom. And that decided that I was not going to cut out to be a teacher. I'd say there's a special place in heaven for teachers, especially second grade. But I worked in this elementary school for many, many years, from the time I was 19 until I was about 25. And I get a phone call one night from my father. And he said, I'm going to a retirement dinner, and your mom has a headache. I don't want to go by myself. Would you go with me? And I said, sure, Dad. And I went. The retirement dinner was for the retiring chief of police for the city of Kerman. And while I was there, I met the incoming chief. And he said, you know, one of my goals is to hire the first female police officer for the city of Kerman. And I thought at that time, well, and I told him, if I know of anybody interested, I'll let you know. But on the way home that night, I had a conversation with my dad, and I said, you know, I was a single mom at the time. I said, I need to be able to support myself and my son. I knew education was not going to be my career path. I needed a career, and I applied for that job. Now, this was in the fall of 1979, and for a police chief at that time to say one of my goals is to hire a female police officer was pretty cutting edge. And I applied, and they hired me. I started in January of 1980 for the city of Kerman as a police officer.
Wow. And what was your dad? Why was he there?
Well, he was initially was a deputy constable and constable when Fresno counties had constables.
Okay.
And in 1973, the constabularies merged with the sheriff's office. So all the constables became sheriff's deputies. He became a sergeant and worked for the sheriff's office. So that's why he had the law enforcement connection.
But you, during that whole time, you never thought, I'm interested. It was just that dinner. That's interesting.
Never. And I'm a believer. I'm a woman of faith, and I know that phone call that night was not accidental. It was meant to be. And as my 42-year career, as it turns out, I think that proves that.
So what made you decide, how do you decide if this is time to retire, it's time to go? Like what goes into that decision making?
Well, as sheriff, and I was sheriff for 16 years, so that's 4 terms. And the time came for me to make a decision on if I was going to run again for another 4 years. And that's a commitment. I believe you should do your full term when you run for election. And the time came when I had to decide, do I want to sign on for another 4 years or not? And I thought, well, 42 years is a long time, and it's enough. And not only that, I had somebody ready to go to step into my place as sheriff.
That makes a big difference.
That makes a huge difference. I could have retired 4 years, 8 years before, but having someone ready to step into the job was very important. That you're confident in.
You don't want to leave people hanging on everything you did.
No, not only that. I care about the sheriff's office and our reputation and how we serve the public. And service is very important to me, and having somebody ready to step in was the game changer. And knowing that John Zanoni was ready to do that gave me a lot of peace in knowing I was doing the right thing and retiring.
So retiring, now you're stepping into more work. I don't understand how you could do this. What came to this decision?
Well, when Supervisor Mendez decided that he was not going to run again, I really connected to the phone call that night that my dad made to me. When the door of opportunity opens, and are you ready and prepared to step through? And when he made that announcement, I thought, this is the only other political office that I was interested in. And we had a conversation, and he said he would endorse me, and so we made the announcement. Now, I had skipped other opportunities for state and federal office. That was not interesting to me at all. I really love local politics. I love the local service, working with people in my neighborhood, in my area. As a deputy, I know that area very well. Growing up in District 4, I know that area very well, all of the cities. And it was just made for me. And the opportunity came up, and I said, I'm willing to step up.
Wow, what a mission. So I know you have a lot of great plans, like going into it. So what are some of the ones that you want to tell our viewers about?
Sure. Public safety. Nobody should be surprised that public safety is going to be a priority for me. In fact, all of the public safety associations have endorsed me for the deputy sheriff's probation officers.
A lot of them have worked with you.
I've worked with all of them.
All of them.
I worked with all of them, and there's a mutual trust, mutual public service bent for all of us. And so that's going to be number one. You cannot have a business or live your life in your home or send your kids to school or go to church unless you feel safe. And so that is really the cornerstone of what it takes for everybody else to be able to function, do their jobs, live their lives. So public safety is very important, and I understand it's a system. It's not just one agency or the other working in silos. If law enforcement make an arrest, they have to have prosecutors to prosecute them. They have to have probation officers if the person is put on probation. You need the DA investigators to help people come to court and to investigate crimes after it leaves that law enforcement agency. So it's a whole system that has to work together, not to mention the courts. It all has to work together. The other thing that I'm interested in is our infrastructure, such as our buildings and our roadways. Very important. Did you know that Fresno County has the most miles of roadway than any other county in the state?
I had no idea.
Fresno County has the most miles of roadway. So making sure that those roadways are repaired, maintained is very important, not to mention the bridges and the county buildings. And we get our money's worth in the county with our buildings. We just opened up a new jail 2 years ago and left a building that was built in 1941. So when I say we got our money's worth, we got our money's worth. So that we're really to keep up, because it's much less expensive to maintain and good repair roads and infrastructure than it is to repair it after it fails.
Right. No, that's really important. And so now you have all these systems working together, and to get this seat or whatever. After public safety, what are some of the other issues that you really want to focus on?
Infrastructure. You know, the homeless, I have no silver bullet for homeless. We've thrown so much money at the homeless issues, not only at the county level, but at the state level. I just know that one of the tactics that has to be used is to keep the homeless population moving, while at the same time offering the services. Because once you let an encampment get established, it's not safe, it's not hygienic, it's not compassionate, because these end up being places where crimes are committed against other homeless.
Right.
And so just keeping them moving, while at the same time offering them housing, offering them mental health services, offering them substance abuse services, because they may not the first time accept, or the second time, or the third time they're moved, but eventually they might get the idea and say, I'm going to have to either I'm going to keep moving, or I'm going to take advantage of the services that are offered.
How have you seen things? Because your career is so impressive that you've seen just so many changes. Do you feel like there's so much more now that there wasn't available back then for these people?
Yeah. There's a lot more available now, a lot more.
But are people taking advantage of it? Because why do we have such a bigger problem?
Right. It is really people don't take advantage. And for instance, there's always the mission where people can go to, the Poverello House. But while you're there, you have to obey the rules. You can't use drugs, you can't drink. And so if you don't want to follow the rules, you don't take advantage of those programs. And so that's a sad commentary on our homeless population. And the drug use leads to mental health issues. There's dual diagnosis. You know, one thing that was important to me is to improve the health care in our jail when I was running the jail. And I met with our behavioral health director at the time, and I said, you know, so many people come into jail with mental health issues. Do these people get help when they're not in jail? And we found out that nobody had reconciled the jail population with when they're not in custody, which meant that the only time they got mental health treatment is if they came to jail, which is sad.
Yeah.
So we changed that. We made sure there was some kind of continuum of care. Once they were released from jail, they continued to get services, which is important. So when I first became sheriff, we went from being sued for the lack of mental and medical health care to being an accredited program with mental health and substance abuse treatment.
So you've seen a lot of people get help with that. That's so awesome. Yeah. Wow. And it seems like I think a lot of people, you get blamed for everything when you're in certain positions, and people don't understand that your hands are tied a lot because you can only do what you can do here, and that there are bigger rules that you have to abide by. You said, well, I'm doing everything I can, what we can do here for homeless people. So when you do get into this office, and because you've been doing this for so long, are there people on a higher state level that you can talk to and that listen to you?
Sure. I have got a lot of contacts, you know, not only in the Central Valley, but statewide and federally. And I do have people I call. I don't know everything.
Right.
You know, I have to admit, I don't know everything. And so I know subject matter experts that are resources for me. I talk a lot to the community. You know, I'll give you another example. One time, I was a lieutenant at the time, and we did a survey in a small town, and it was Layton. We did a survey with 2 community members, and we said, what's your biggest concern? What do you need in the little community of Layton, an unincorporated community? And of course, in law enforcement, I thought they were going to talk about crime and gangs and all graffiti. But you know what their number one need was, according to the community? They wanted a mobile dentist.
How funny.
And so we assume we know what the community wants, but unless you ask, you don't know. And we asked. We had made arrangements to have a mobile dentistry go out to this little community because that was what they said they needed more than anything. And so I think it's so important to talk to people out in the community. I've been to every coffee shop and restaurant you can think of in all of Fresno County, and that's where I get really good information just by asking people, what do you need?
That's really impressive. And so people probably come to you a lot too when you've created all of these nationally accredited stuff to ask what they could do in their towns as well. What are some of the other relationships you've started throughout California? Yeah,
so I think it's important to have good relationships with our legislators, whether we agree or not. You know, it's important to have those contacts and let them know what we need. In the Central Valley, we're different. We're different here than the population on the coast or in Southern California. We're more similar to Northern California. The old-time term used is Valleycrats, and that's kind of what we are here in the Central Valley. And I'm very impressed by some of our legislators that vote their district, that will look at their counterparts in the rest of the state and say, this is not what my district wants. And I'll bring up Juan Arambula. Years ago, he started as a county supervisor, became an assembly member, and he voted his district on an issue, and he was punished. He was put in a closet-sized office because he did not vote with his party, which is a shame, but good for him. Good for him for realizing that who he's answerable to in government, we don't answer to other government entities. We answer to the people that we serve. And that's one of the reasons why I got back into public service. I miss public service. I miss problem solving. I miss people, talking to people and being able to solve some problems. Sometimes they're really easy. Just getting them in touch with the right person is what you can do. And I miss that a lot.
And that was something that was one of the best parts of the job?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, dealing with politics, it's not always pleasant. You know, dealing with criminals, it's not always pleasant. But problem solving, when you can actually make a difference in somebody's life, I'm very gratified. I get a lot of personal gratification out of that.
What are some of the biggest problems that you're really excited about that you had solved?
Yeah. Well, when we talk about crime issues, we had a series of murders, homicides, in the little community of Mendota. Now, one thing the sheriff's office does is for our smaller police agencies, we do all their homicide investigations and not charge them for it. Just because it doesn't happen very often, they don't have the expertise to be able to investigate, testify in court, and so we do the homicide investigations if we're asked. Mm-hmm. And we had some very serious MS-13 issues out on the west side, and Mendota asked us to take some of their homicides, and we were able to include a couple of ours and realize what was going on with this El Salvadorian gang. The investigation ended up leading us nationwide and international. We actually had detectives go to El Salvador. We solved 18 homicides across the nation, from Nevada, Texas, Fresno County, Florida, Maryland, just from here, our small
pretty
Central
incredible.
Valley. It was, and working with federal partners, because most of these were federal offenses. They ended up being prosecuted federally. But to put together a task force to deal with that issue was huge, and it made nationwide news, a big difference. Also, one of the things that we did when marijuana was so prevalent in our mountain areas, where people would go up into our public lands and grow marijuana. One of the things that I asked, 'cause year after year we would go up there, we'd find a grow, we would eradicate it and leave, go on to the next grow, eradicate it and leave, and I said, how come nobody's going to jail? So we started investigating and arresting people for these grows. And not only that, one of the things that we did was start tearing out their infrastructure. Because what would happen is they'd just go up to the same area in the mountains and use their same reservoirs, water reservoirs they'd built, use their same drip line, use their same campsite. And what we found out, as we took that infrastructure out, it made it harder for them to start a new grow. And we just reduced the amount of grows on our public lands that was poisoning the water, killing wildlife, terrible for the environment, and using volunteer groups to clean up that area and restore it. And the last year that we did this type of eradication, we had 100% reclamation of the mountain lands.
Wow.
And that was used as a model. Tulare County started doing it, other counties started doing the same thing. So it was, when you work together and pull people together that have the same goal and the same interest, I think that's something that I can really continue to do as supervisor.
That is amazing. What's another thing that you have between across the nation, the marijuana? I
know. I'll talk about something local, completely separate from those issues, but it has a tie-in. I'm a student of my craft, so I study law enforcement. I study statistics. I look at, what's working. And I looked at some statistics that showed that 80% of people in our nation's prisons were illiterate. And that made me think, in our local juvenile hall, I called the director at the time and I said, how are the kids doing in juvenile hall when it comes to literacy? And she said, they're 4 to 5 grade levels below where they need to be. And so it came to me that if we could increase literacy, we can decrease crime. And so I started what I called the Sheriff's Reading Posse. I want to deputize children to read. And at the time, it was Larry Powell, who was our superintendent of schools. And I said, Larry, I want to start a literacy program where people in the sheriff's office hand out brand new children's books to kids as they come across them in our community, in our lobby, if they come in with their folks, or in the lobby of the jail even, where COs can hand out books. I want to be able to do that, to encourage kids to read. And the second thing it did is it developed a good relationship between that child and law enforcement. And I said, my problem is I don't have any money. And he said, I can help you out there. I can provide you with brand new children's books. And they weren't just children's books. This is recommended reading for kids that were going to school in Fresno County. And I said, I have to make this easy. I can't have deputies out there trying to assess the reading level of a child.
Right.
And so we let them choose their book. They might be in 6th grade, but they're at a 3rd grade reading level. And they might be embarrassed if we handed them a 5th grade reading level book. So we just opened up our bags and said, choose a book. Choose what you want. It might be dinosaurs. It might be airplanes. It might be space. It could be Disney. It could be anything. And we started that. We've given away thousands of books that kids can take home. And it might be in a home where, buying a children's book may be secondary. They're just trying to make ends meet.
Right.
And so they get to take these books home and keep them.
That's
now,
awesome.
In addition, inside every book, there was an application for a Fresno County library card. So they could continue free of charge, go into a library, apply, get a card, and start checking out their own books. And so it was a real good partnership between county schools, our library system, and the gratification of our sheriff's office personnel. I had a correctional officer come to me and he said, I'll never forget the look on that child's face when I let him choose a book. And he looked at me like, I can keep this book? And he said, I'll never forget him looking at me, and he'll always remember the child that somebody in uniform gave them a book that they could take home and keep. And so that's another thing that was, I'm a reader. I love to read. And if I can spark that same love of reading, not only will it give a lifetime of enjoyment to somebody, maybe we can reduce crime too.
That is great. You do so much for the community. How do we help you in this run with volunteering and everything that we can help you in?
Yeah. Well, we have a website, and it's www.mims, M-I-M-S, 4, the digit 4, supervisor.org. So MIMS 4, the digit 4, supervisor.org. And there's a place where you can learn what all my endorsements are, how to volunteer, if you have questions, how to ask a question, how to donate. If you want to endorse, you can also put that information on there. And it tells a little bit about me and what my priorities are. And if you have a question, you can ask and get someone to call you back, and maybe me personally to call you back and answer your question. So that's a way to contact me right now.
And then where are you going to be? Any upcoming speaking engagements that we can go to? Any Q&As that you know of off top?
I'm just everywhere. I'm trying to attend all the chamber events right now that people are having. I have an Indian event coming up because we have a huge East Indian population in that South County. So as we come up, we will put events and on the website as well.
That is great. Thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it, and good luck on everything. I can't wait to see all the things that you're going to do, and you've done so much. Hopefully come back and talk to us.
I will.
When you come back. That'll be great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on today.
You're welcome. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you have a pretty impressive career. Tell our viewers a little bit about what you do.
Well, my name is Eimear, and it's an Irish name. I was born and raised in Ireland, and I went to public school there, and I had an interesting life, really. My mom suffered from a debilitating stroke when I was about 10. I'm the oldest of 5, so I had to assume a lot of responsibilities growing up, you know, the cooking,
Wow.
the cleaning, grocery shopping, all of that kind of thing. And school was kind of like a safe haven for me. I loved going to school, I loved learning, and I always knew that that's what I wanted to do.
That is awesome, because sometimes you go the other way when you have to.
Right, yeah. I just loved just what school brought to me, just the safe, you know, physically safe, of course, but, you know, just that emotionally safe place of school. And I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to provide that place for other kids. So that's what I went ahead and did. I actually
How'd you end up here?
Well, I know, it's a crazy story.
The condensed version, yeah.
I'll give you the condensed
Okay.
version. I taught for 10 years in Ireland, and then at the time, my sister lives here. She's a nurse here in Fresno. And I came over to visit with her and spend a year on a career break here, which was something that Ireland was encouraging because our economy was encouraging. I won't go into the details, but people to study abroad or work abroad. And so I wasn't really sure how long I would stay here, but I've actually been here now, made Fresno my home for 32 years.
You were not supposed to stay here. This is supposed to be a break. I love that. That's a great story.
So I started teaching in the private school, Catholic school, because I didn't have a teaching credential.
Okay.
And then when I decided to stay longer, I pursued a California credential, and I ended up teaching another 10 years here. So I had taught for 10 years in Ireland and then 10 years here. I absolutely loved being a teacher. I ended up teaching 3rd grade in Clovis Unified School District, and I was a very happy camper teaching 3rd grade.
My aunt teaches 3rd grade. She loves that grade. That's like her favorite grade to teach.
Fantastic, yeah. All of my teaching career was in kindergarten through 3rd grade, teaching young kids how to read and write. I loved it, yeah. It was a great experience.
So then what made you go on to be a superintendent and do all the... I know a lot of people hate that when they're loving a teacher. They're like, oh, I never want to be on that end.
Well, I never, ever thought that I would end up being a superintendent. But, you know, when I was a 3rd grade teacher, I took on a lot of responsibilities at the school site, you know, participating in various committees and things like that. And so at one point somebody said to me, would you ever consider, you know, applying to be a vice principal of an elementary school? And that started a journey that took me to being a principal of the elementary school. And then I became a deputy and the principal at Clovis West High School, which was a really great opportunity.
Well, I'm glad you like it. That's a switch.
It was a big switch.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I was going to be, you know, I'm short in stature, how it was going to go, but...
You like the young children. That's like a big switch of, okay.
I used to always say that the high schoolers were like little kids in bigger bodies, though. You know, they're really just wonderful humans, just also learning and trying to navigate the system. I loved my experience at Clovis West High School. Yeah, I was very happy there. Then I was encouraged to apply for an assistant superintendent position at the district office. And I lamented leaving the high school, but once I did become the assistant superintendent, I loved that position. I oversaw high school, intermediate school, and 7 elementary schools. It was like a mini district in Clovis Unified. We had like 9,000 or 10,000 students, and I was responsible for pretty much everything.
Did you feel like you could make a bigger difference? Is that why eventually when you kept going in different roles, you're like, okay, I'm doing my thing here.
Every role gave me an opportunity to kind of like scale up. When I was at the elementary school, we were very successful. We were the highest performing school in the district at the time. And then when I went to the high school, you know, I learned how to rally people around a vision and a goal. And I remember we had the highest growth of any high school in the district on the state test. And our staff was so proud and our kids were so proud. And so every time I moved up, you know, I was, you know, taking my skill set and my abilities, my leadership style to the next level. And in 2017, honestly, Sparkle, it was the honour of my life to be appointed superintendent of Clovis Unified. It was really one of the greatest honours of my life. So I became the 8th superintendent of Clovis Unified, yeah. I was there for superintendent for 6 years. It was a great experience. Although I always say, you know, it kind of was dog years because we had COVID in the middle of that. I feel like it translates to about an extra 5 years, you know.
I would not want to be you. That's how was that dealing with those challenges?
You know, I think, you know, it was one of those times where, you know, having that trust from our staff and our students and our parents in us as me as a superintendent and our administrative team was so important. Everything I had done in terms of spending time in schools and speaking with teachers and students and parents all came to a head when we needed everybody to work together. But it was, people were afraid and people, were very anxious. Our kids were very uncertain. We had 22,000 students miss an entire year of in-person instruction.
And that had to be like pretty much right after you started that role, like not long after, like a year or two into it. Or
about 2 years into it.
Oh my
3 years
goodness.
into it. Yeah.
Because then everything kind of falls back on you, but it's all experimental. You're making decisions that you really don't know.
Well, we work together as a team. We were working very closely with our governing board. Every superintendent, is answerable to the elected officials who appoint you, which is your governing board. And then you're also, taking your direction from them, but also implementing that with, we had about over 7,000 employees in Clovis Unified, that you're kind of like this conduit between the board and the employees to make it all work. It's very nuanced, the position of district superintendent.
But then, and then no one really kind of knows. It's unforeseen territory that you've never done before, that no one's done.
Nobody had done.
Yeah, so it's like a super experimental, and it all falls back on
it all fell back on collaboration and working together. I used to use the word grace a lot. I used to say we all need to extend grace to each other because it's new for everybody. And I always say education is a work of the heart. And I kept saying, let's keep our heart in this. Let's keep the humanity in this, and remember that everybody's in a different place. And honestly, we navigated it very successfully in Clovis Unified. We all just stayed steady, kept steadying the ship. The state kept, I always hate that word, pivot. They kept pivoting there. Seemed like every day, but it was definitely a very challenging time to go through. And when it was over, what we did in Clovis Unified is we assessed every child in the district to determine, where to essentially create a baseline, so we knew where the gaps were going to be.
Wow.
And then we put into place, a series of supports and interventions so that we could start building our kids back up again. And we've been doing that ever since. It's slowly coming back to where we were,
No, that's great. My godson graduated from Clovis West in 2024, and so I went to the graduation. It seems like the kids are great and doing good and thriving right after. So whatever you did seemed to have worked. What you guys did collaboratively. There's still a lot
with our little kids in particular, who were, at that very, influential age when they were like 3 and 4. That's where we're seeing the most work. So there's a lot of great, honestly, I credit the educational team in Clovis Unified for all the work that went into it. But I will say, as a district superintendent, meeting with all of my other colleagues around the county, all of our other district superintendents, Fresno Unified, Sanger Unified, Selma Central, all of those district superintendents were working equally hard with their teams, and we met every single week with Jim Yavino. He was our county superintendent, and we would meet and share best practices. What are you doing in athletics? How are you navigating the 6 feet? What's the latest on filtration systems? And we all shared ideas with each other. That was a time that Fresno County really pulled together.
That's great. It seems like you guys got along well doing that. That's a really good story.
Yeah.
So now, this seems like a natural position that you're going. It seems like it's the next step for you.
Yeah, I saw myself, Fresno County's been very good to me. As I mentioned, I've lived here now 32 years, and I've loved every minute of my career. And so I saw my next chapter involving giving back to education. And especially after the pandemic, we have a lot of needs in education in our county. And so I felt this real desire to give back in Fresno County. I had, several opportunities to to serve outside of the county at the state level, and I kept saying no, I really want to be here, and I wasn't really sure what shape it would take. I saw myself as maybe an advisor to some superintendents or other leaders, but I had a lot of my people that I admire and respect encouraged me to think about running for the county superintendent role, and to be frank, that is a position that requires an election. And I never really wanted to run in an election.
I know, right?
It's
pretty
a
daunting.
whole new ball game for me. And I really had to think long and hard about it because, running an election, you're putting yourself into a whole new space where, your track record is called into question. And, there's just a lot of spotlight on you, and I've always worked very well just staying focused on my job, and going out into a much broader context was just something I had never done before. And over a long, series of months, I really reflected on it. I found, what does it say about me if I sit on the sidelines when I know that we have a lot of challenges out there, that my skill set, my leadership style are all very suited to
very much seems like that.
Yeah. And so eventually I decided, okay, I kept saying, somebody needs to do this and somebody needs to do that, and somebody said, well, why would that not be you? So I took the leap of faith to put my name in for the race, and so I'm very much in it, and I'm very, very busy. Talking to a lot of people.
So what are you doing? So it was you were the superintendent, then you... Yeah.
So I know it gets a little confusing, our system. So we have 31 districts in Fresno County.
Right.
We're one of the larger counties in the state. And every county in the state, we have 58 counties, they all have a county superintendent who essentially has certain responsibilities for the school districts. Let me explain that though better. The county superintendent is kind of like the administrative arm of the California Department of Education. Mm-hmm. So they have three main requirements. They approve the budgets for all the 31 school districts, mm-hmm. and they approve the plans called the Local Control Accountability Plans, called the LCAP, which every district develops with their boards and their teams and their parents. Then the county makes sure that their expenditures are matching their goals and their actions. The county doesn't necessarily have any say in what those goals and actions are, but they have to make sure that all the expenditures line up. And then the third thing that the county office does is make sure that the county has a court school for students who are detained, minors who are detained, but still are entitled to a public school education. So, but our County Office of Education provides many more support services, legal services, special education, professional development. All of those services are services that the district superintendents can avail of if they wish. So, for example, when I was the superintendent in Clovis, we had our own legal counsel, we had our own special education team. So they were not services that I leaned heavily on for the county, but many of the smaller districts would. When I was out in Central Unified, I served as interim superintendent there last year, and we did rely on the county for many of those services. But really, I described it to somebody recently. The county superintendent is not a position of power and control, because when I was the superintendent of Clovis, I took all my direction from my 7 elected members of the community, the board. They evaluated me. I had goals to achieve every year, and I sat in my evaluation every year and was accountable to achieving those goals. But the county superintendent, so is not necessarily a position of power and control. It's a position, I like to say, of guidance, support, and influence. If we work together, all those 31 superintendents, district superintendents, we can achieve some great things.
Right.
Like when Jim Yavino was our county superintendent during my tenure, we all felt that the mental health services that we had in the county were not cutting it for our kids, especially coming out of COVID. And so we collaborated with Jim Uvino around, like, we put our heads together, what can we do? And so we came up with this huge idea that if we could channel the funding that the Department of Behavioural Health gets, channel it through the Fresno County Office of Education and disseminate it out to every school in Fresno County. So there was a clinician, a mental health clinician at every school. Then kids could have, consistency, and there was somebody going to be on their campus on a regular basis. And so he said, well, I'm going to need every one of you to provide me with, an office of some sort at every school. And we said, we can do that. So that was where All for Youth was born. It was born out of the collaboration of us all together, rallying around a bigger goal so that the county could be lifted up. And that's something that the county superintendent can do. None of us had to do it. There was nothing saying we had to participate in All for Youth, but we saw it as a great way of coming together to uplift an educational experience for all of our kids. Yeah.
Wow, that's really awesome. It's impressive that you've done all this, and now the next chapter that you're embarking upon, and we're glad that you're running, even though it's a lot of work.
Yeah. I personally feel that we're at a historic moment in Fresno County. We have a situation here where many of the educational issues that we navigate, such as chronic absenteeism or some of the anxiety and mental health issues or the extreme behaviours that we're seeing in our schools, I believe that many of those issues are as a result of the fact that many of our kids, a significant number of our kids, are not meeting standards in reading and comprehension by third grade, which is the first time the state actually takes a measurement. And all of my experience as a teacher was in those early years. And around the nation, states have started taking a hard look at that because we're all experiencing it.
Right.
And some states have had extraordinary success at completely switching that metric around. For example, there's a phenomenon now called the Mississippi Miracle, because even though Mississippi is one of the poorest states in the nation and receives some of the lowest per student funding, they went from being at the very bottom, like number 49 and 50 in the state, or in the country, to being at the top of the country. They're ranked number 9, but they're really just behind like some of the gold standard states like Massachusetts. And their Hispanic students, their 4th grade Hispanic readers, are number 1 in the nation.
Isn't that amazing? It's amazing how you could turn anything around. It's a great...
Yeah. That's a great example of another mighty vision that we could all come together and take on. I'd like to tackle that. So that's one of the main motivators actually for me running for this, because I feel for all those little kiddos who get to 3rd grade and then they come into 4th grade and they feel, they don't feel confident, because that's the point where you kind of go from learning to read to reading to learn. And I see so many kids, it's a lot. We have about close to 60% of our students not making it in reading. So that's a lot of students going into 4th grade that just then start falling behind, and their self-esteem starts lowering, and then it leads to more serious problems as they go through the system. Yeah.
Well, I definitely love your passion. Where can we follow you and see what you're doing and see where we can come and support you and see your speaking engagements or Q&As? Where do we follow you for all that?
Well, I do have a website. It's eimear4results.com, and the number 4. I do feel very strongly that our students deserve to have results so that they can have the success in our educational system that they deserve. So that's why I selected that. And I have a website with, it has a lot of information. It talks about a little bit about my leadership story and what I'm hoping to achieve as superintendent, as county superintendent.
So Eimear for
results.
I love that. Okay, that's easy to remember.
And it tells you a lot. There's a lot of information about. I have a lot of very respected members of our community endorsing me.
I imagine.
Yeah,
and where can we? Do you have off top the next kind of big event that you're either speaking or we can do a Q&A?
Yeah, I'm in a lot of places.
I'm sure.
Speaking at Rotaries and retirement communities and various places. But I am going to be doing a panel discussion with the Maddie Institute coming up on April 2nd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and there will be other opportunities. So I'll be announcing that on my Instagram.
So we need to follow you on Instagram.
Yes,
I'm following you.
I saw that.
Yes, and you're on Facebook too. So
yes,
awesome.
I am. Yeah.
We will definitely follow and keep up. This is great. We love what you're doing. And everyone needs to go to the website to learn more and definitely to help. And you'll tell us when the next fundraisers or anything for you is. So
thank you.
We'll keep posted. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you and appearing on this show. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So tell us what you've been up to since the last time I saw you in this seat.
Well, it's been a minute since you and I sat and talked. There's been a lot going on. I was running for Congress at the time. A lot that I learned during that congressional race. But what happened was we had 11 people down to the final 2. I really didn't want 2 conservative Republicans battling and separating the parties. So I stepped away from that race.
Which is a noble thing to do. A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, I feel like it was. And, Vince Fong is a good candidate, and he won, and deservingly so, and I think he's doing a good job. And I tell people all the time, I go, look, just because I lost, I'm not moving to Canada. There's a lot to be done here in California, in the San Joaquin Valley, as you know. And
well, it's not even really a loss because
yeah, it's not a loss. I'm still the sheriff of Tulare County. I enjoy that job, working in the community. I've done it for a good long time. And so my public service and dedication is to that.
That's the passion. But you have, now that you've dabbled in this and now that you've stepped on this side and done all the stuff that you're doing, you're going to start a podcast?
Yeah.
Where can we watch this at? I want to hear about that.
We're starting a podcast. I was approached by 511 Media asking if I would entertain the idea of hosting a show.
Mike Harvey.
Yeah, Mike Harvey. He told me to tell you hello. And so, he's not running it. There's different, players that get involved in that. And so we did some promotional video today, and we're looking to maybe launch that at the end of February. For me, I grew up in Tulare County, and so my focus is the San Joaquin Valley and everything that happens here. And what I learned going through the congressional race is oftentimes the voices of those living and working each and every day. One is they're either not heard or they're not paying attention. And so the idea behind the platform itself is that we want to put some material together where people, one, is entertained, and two, they really learn some things maybe they didn't know about the San Joaquin Valley. we're not just focusing on politics, but we're definitely going to be having guests on that surround politics. But we also want to talk about police officers and emergency services and nurses and their mental health, and the mental health of emergency services oftentimes gets forgotten.
And that's really great. I actually have heard recently a lot of people feel this need to have a podcast for that. I had a lot of friends that were interested that were in EMT services and stuff like that talked about wanting to do stuff like that, but they were too busy to get involved. So I have a lot of potential guests for your podcast.
I'll tell you what, I will take any guest that wants to come on and talk, because I think what happens is the general public think that emergency services lives in the shadow of heroism, right? Meaning that they do their job, they knew what they were getting into, and they're not really human beings.
Right.
But really, we've got law enforcement officers, firemen, nurses that see tragedy each and every day, and how do they cope with that? And I want people to hear their voices, and so part of the podcast will surround that.
Oh, that's great. You have a big audience for that. I could definitely tell it's going to do really well. Well, I'm glad that you decided to do that. That's a lot of work.
It's going to be a lot of work, and you've already agreed to become a guest. She didn't, but I'm trying to talk her into it.
Some guests.
You didn't agree, but I think that you would. You'd be a very entertaining person to talk to, and I think it'd be good for people to learn a little bit about you and what you deal with in talking to people up and down the San Joaquin Valley.
I interview nothing but the best. So
I agree. I think that you do. I think you interview the best, but it really is important to tap into the reality of people behind the scenes. Agriculture is a subject that we'll touch on. Water's a subject we'll touch on, and all of that's been hammered and pushed around quite a bit. But I think that we repeat the information, we repeat the messaging, and the other thing is that I have my own political action committee that we've put together as well.
What's that?
It's called Golden State Justice.
Okay.
And so Golden State Justice is a political action committee, and it's designed to identify true candidates that will do a good job in position and get money behind them. Because what I learned in the congressional race is if you don't have the financial support, no matter what kind of good heart you have, no matter what kind of desire you have to do the right thing and to serve the community, if you don't have the financial backing, you're going to lose. It's the reality of politics. And people say, Mike, look, it's not about the money. It absolutely is about the money.
That's the first thing you learn in any class.
Look, it's political 101.
Right.
For me, when I ran for office, Vince was outraising me because of some political action committees, and that's where I learned my lesson. I said, look, I have to have political action committees behind me to be able to support that. Why not generate my own PAC to help put good quality candidates in place? We can't be out there selling snow globes and stuffed animals, at the corner of here and there. We've got to have true financial backing. And so we're going to be putting together, this PAC is already together. We have some funding in it now because there's been some people contributing, but we're going to hopefully get that to a point we can really get behind some good quality candidates.
Oh, that sounds really awesome.
Yeah. Well, and the podcast title is Golden State Justice as well, because I really think that we can make California golden again. I really do. I think that there's a turn in the atmosphere. I think people are tired of politics as normal. I think that they also believe there's some corruption when it comes to our voting system in California. I think that's going to be exposed. People are bringing forward the idea that, hey, is our voting system solid as it should be, or is it corrupt? Down deep, I think all of us believe maybe there's a little bit of corruption there. I would hope that voter ID comes into place, and that's what I want to talk about on the podcast. Let's talk about voter ID and what that means for Californians.
No, for sure. I love that. I love the idea. I think that's going to be really great. So I'm glad that you're doing that. Why do you think there has been a shift in? I've noticed that too, that people are more passionate. Do you think because Trump is president? Do you think it's Charlie Kirk? Why are people more out there?
Well, personally, I mean, you run a good program and your media is straightforward, right? But not everybody's like you. And I think that we all have become aware of the fact that the media hasn't been truthful with us. And I think there's a shift in the atmosphere because people are tired of being fooled. They're learning that what they were told, you can call it Trump or during the Trump candidacy, that what we were told later was exposed, in fact, that they were lying to us. And so people are wanting the truth. They believe that California is a state that's salvageable. We can save it if we work together and things are done truly and honestly. And what the media tells us in California is, in fact, not true. I personally think there's a big shift in pushing for the conservative party, whether you're an independent or you favor to the right. But we also have a lot of Democrats that are moderate Democrats who just believe in good education for their kids. They believe in a good, strong economy. There are some hardcore issues that separate us on each side of that. But the reality of it is the middle ground are people who really want to see California succeed. I travel up and down the state of California, as you know, as well as you do. And I tell you, I talk to people all over the place that repeat what I'm saying right now.
Right.
And you do too. We hear people all over the state. Even like I'm a well-known Republican, but I see middle ground. I feel like I'm a moderate Republican.
I just went to the Libertarian convention. Yeah. I had great I had really awesome conversations.
I have great conversations with Democrats who are frustrated.
Sometimes we just
they've been fooled. You know, this hard left extremism that we see is not your moderate Democrat. It's not. I have a lot of Democrat friends, and we can debate and have differences of opinion. But at the end of the day, we want our children to be safe. We want our communities to be safe. We want to be able to have an economy that's strong. And we all want to be able to live peacefully and make sure that we can go to the park without the threat of violence, right? We all believe that we want a safe community, and public safety is number one in many people's minds.
Definitely. Well, I think this is going to be great. This is a great podcast. I love that you're including, all facets of people that help with that, like from firefighters to EMTs and all of that. Yeah. So that's really awesome.
I also want to talk about our educators, our education system and what our teachers believe. And I know you just had a guest on that is focused on the education system. But, as a parent, we want our kids to be educated, and we're finding that our education system is flawed. I just had a statistic the other day about 50% of those under in the middle school range aren't reading at grade level. 50% of California children are not reading at grade level. That's embarrassing. And so why is that?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, especially when our taxes go and we see these schools being built and we expect our teachers to teach and we expect the programs to be done correctly. But California is flawed. Sacramento is flawed. I don't believe there should be a supermajority the way it is now. It's overwhelming us in what we believe in our systems and what we believe, and Californians have been fooled.
So what platform can we watch it on? Tell us a little. I'm really anxious to watch it.
Well, it's obviously going to kick out on a podcast format, but we're going to have it on YouTube as well. That's being put together now.
Okay.
The first podcast will definitely be about what we're talking about now.
That's awesome.
Informing people and saying, hey, listen in. And if
do you know who your first guest is?
We have a few.
I know you have a few lined up.
Yeah, we have a few lined up, and who's going to commit to that first, we're not sure, and who would be that person that would generate that viewership, I'm not sure.
I'm really excited about this. I want to be the first to watch. Are you going to try to pump it out once a week? Have you thought of that much?
Well, right now, yeah. We've really discussed that. As you know, you're in the media business more than me, and so I'm in a learning process. I'm a talker. I like to talk and bring forth issues of truth and justice and transparency, and so I've kind of been known. That's my platform and moving forward. But that's how I've been for my 40 years of community service, right? But what they said there is, hey, Mike, you should go, national at an hour a week. Well, I can't do that. I don't have the entertainment value for people to watch for an hour.
Well, eventually. But
I can't do that. So there was a lot of meetings.
Start this way.
Yeah, a lot of meetings and discussion. Yeah. I think we're going to go 2 days a week, 20 minutes at a time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, just a nice little...
I don't think that you could just do 20 minutes at a time. We'll see how that goes.
I'm a talker, and I like people talking to me. Like, you're a really good interviewer because you let people, talk. But you're also very well educated in what you're asking your questions about. And so that's important to me that I go on and I learn. I learn from others. I can't go on with the expectation that I have all the knowledge.
Yeah, no, that's the best is getting what people have to say and learning things. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Pretty fun
and my area of expertise is public safety, but I'm also knee deep in politics, and I received on-the-job training when it comes to campaigns, and I know a lot about that. And I also know a lot about the nuances of, corruption's a very difficult word to swallow, and maybe that's too hard of a word. More of the nuances of what it takes to run an election and win.
Yeah, you definitely have that inner experience.
Yeah.
So how deep are you going to go? Because you're all over the place, in the middle of California.
Yeah.
Are you kind of more involved now in like Bakersfield? Or
I'm in Bakersfield probably 3 days a week. I'm in Fresno, Clovis often. I'm up here quite a bit with meetings and sitting with different people, and then I have my hub, Tulare County and Kings County. I'm there quite a bit. So just today I was in Bakersfield twice. I've been up here 3 times, and I do a lot of driving and try to get out as much information I can in a very short amount of time, and then spit off to the next meeting.
So who are some other people that we should look out for in some of these cities that we don't know about? Because you said your PAC was going to kind of help support some people. Are there some people that are off the radar that we should be aware of, the up and comers?
I think there's some people that are good quality candidates. I'm not sure if they want to step into it as yet. What's hard?
That face.
Yeah, what's hard is taking that step, because the minute you step off into politics, they want to beat you up and make you out to be a bad guy.
And a lot of the best people don't want to be in there because of it. A lot of people are best for the job.
Good people don't want to do that, right?
Yeah,
it's really hard. You have to be thick-skinned.
And then you have to put your family through. It's not just you. You put your loved ones.
I've been called a lot
that.
of ugly things, and had a lot of ugly things said that weren't true. And so that's the bad thing about social media. The minute social media kicks off on something and they read it and believe it, then, it's true because I read it. Somehow we got to get away from that, and I don't think the near future holds that. I think that we're all locked into social media, unfortunately, and we can use it to our advantage as well. Even with me at the sheriff's office, I hired a young lady who knows social media, and things that she posts I would have never thought of posting, but she's successful in our department.
That's why you get somebody else that knows how to do something better.
You got to have somebody else that knows how to do
somebody
it.
Else,
That's why I'm here talking to you, right? Because you know what you're doing, and I've learned a lot watching your show and how you carry yourself, and I hope to carry that same atmosphere.
Well,
in mine.
I can't wait, because I've actually heard of a need for a lot of people. Have actually said they wanted a show like that, and so I really can't. It's going to be great to hear those voices, and just like the people that I talk to in this community, they have so many great stories. So I think we're going to get a lot of great people.
Well, there's going to be a lot of great stories. There's going to be some emotional stories. We already know that. We have some police officers and firemen that have very emotional stories. Even hearing them talk, I get emotional. And even though I've been in this business a long time, my focus is going to be hear your story, and then what did we do to succeed in your mental health, in your growth, and did you get through that hard moment? And then teach others and expose others to the importance of talking about things. When I was raised in the sheriff's office and I saw so many things, I was never asked, hey, how you doing? Are you doing okay? And do you need help? Do you want to talk about it? Mine was tough it out, right? Tough it out. And I think the general public expects police officers just to tough it out. The reality of it is we need to talk it out. We need to talk about it. We need to make sure that our police officers, our firemen, our nurses, the tragedy that they see, they know they don't have to hold it in. They have help out there. And it's important that the community support them. When we went through BLM and some other things that have happened over the recent years that, police officers are the bad guy. Look what's happening with ICE right now. Those are law enforcement officers just trying to do their job. And you have people that are obstructing, attacking, and shooting at them.
It is kind of crazy to see all the things that have happened. I mean, because you've been in this industry for so long. I mean, did you ever in a million years think that defund the police is going to be a thing?
Never.
I mean,
never. Defunding the police. I put a tweet out that I got pretty slammed about when that initially happened, and I just said, hey, for all of you out there who are hating police officers right now, just leave us your phone number and your address, and when you call 911, tell us not to come. And boy, I got beat up over that. But the reality of it is
that's the reality of it.
It's the truth of it. If when you're slamming and hating on police officers, who's the first you call for help? You dial 911 and you expect us to be there.
Right.
And so I think it becomes trendy to hate on cops, when the reality of it is, behind the scene, most people appreciate the job and the work they do.
Do you think it's turned around now? We got away from that. So now do you think people are turning around, they're respecting cops again as a whole? I mean, society as a whole?
I think that they always respected as a whole. I just think that those who screamed that they did not like cops aren't being listened to as much anymore. That's it.
It's like kind of turning around. We've now kind of which is good. I see a lot of different changes happening. But
well, and I see people being more bold, right? I see people being more bold to push back and say, no, what you're saying is not true. My brother is a law enforcement officer, or my sister's a law enforcement officer, and what you're saying is not true. And you have more and more people standing up and feeling empowered, especially since Trump came into office. They feel more empowered to stand up and say, we're not listening to this garbage anymore. So I don't know that the society as a whole ever walked away from law enforcement. I think the media and or social media and the presence of that narrative was carried by a very few, while the majority supported.
Right, I agree. And then now ICE is the new bad guy.
ICE is the new enemy, and it's unfortunate. But what I do like seeing is that ICE says, hey, look, you can peacefully protest if you want, but if you obstruct and get in our way and violate the law, we're going to come down on you and arrest you. And that's what's happening when you see the videos that you get in the way of an ICE officer and obstruct him from his duties, he's going to arrest you, and that's what's happening.
Well, isn't it the narcissism thing? They say that you provoke, you provoke, you provoke, and then when they come back, it's like they get, and then they're like, oh, you did that. And so it's kind of like the same concept, and we're seeing that, and it's the same thing that they're showing.
Well,
right?
if you remember during Defund the Police and BLM, I even sent deputies, and so did Fresno and others, up to San Francisco during the riots, and we had officers getting spit on, and we couldn't do anything.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
You know, that's the craziest thing in the world. You spit on a police officer in Tulare County, you're going to jail. And I would argue the same thing in Fresno, Kern, and Kings County. That's Central Valley that I can speak most specifically to. But we're finding a push and a trend to get back to supporting law enforcement. You spit on a police officer, you're going to jail.
I can't believe it was ever a thing that you couldn't arrest somebody for that. That's crazy.
Well, what happened was the narrative and the pushback against police chiefs and city councils and elected officials became so powerful that the influence in how they had their police agencies operate was really a negative to the community.
Well, I'm glad things are getting a little bit more back on track.
I think so.
What's your plan now? I know you don't know if you're ever going to go into politics again, but what are you kind of looking to do the next
I've been
few years
asked to run for different offices. I'm always flattered when I'm asked. When I ran for Congress, it was a learning lesson, and I felt I would do a good job. And unfortunately, I didn't win that race. And so since then, doors have opened for me in regards to different positions and how they want me to run. But I really think my wheelhouse is where I'm at, being the elected sheriff of Tulare County. But I also want to broaden that with this podcast and broaden the idea of helping others get into position with the Political Action Committee. And maybe that's the trail that I take right now.
I like it because it shows different sides of what you're doing and what you do. So I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. Yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on my show. You're going to have to come a lot more often than you have been to kind of keep us about what's going on. So maybe like every 6 months you're going to have to come and tell us what you're doing, and then...
I'd love to. You've become a good friend. I appreciate all that you do and the exposure that you give certain topics, and you do a really great job. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Felt right in the moment, felt right in the summertime. It felt right drinking cherry wine with you. I just wanted to own it, just wanted to take the time, learn all the things that I could about you. Now it's such a mess here, oh, we are just stressed here. Used to be so easy with you. Now I must confess here, oh, I must confess, dear, don't think I'm in love with you. Winter is coming and I don't know what to do, and there's no more use in running, no more running to you. And I don't want your loving, I don't wanna be just friends, knowing all this time we were playing pretend.
It's a mystery.